Welcome to the Dr. Adesina show. I'm glad that you're here. And of course, if you're joining me for the first time, this is where I share resources to help SMEs thrive. You're welcome. Yeah, sorry, I could not make it last week. A couple of things so was going on. So anyway, I'm here now. So great to have everybody here. So today I have another interesting topic. Um, I believe I talked about an LLC a couple of shows ago. Today I want to mention the S-Corp structure. Now, you might be wondering, you've heard of the S-Corp. S-Corp, if you have a small business and you're in the US, you must have heard of the S-Corp, small corp structure. We call it S-Corp. And I know somebody might be wondering, or if you're just getting into business, you might wonder, what is this S-Corp? What is S-Corp? Now, an S-Corp is not in a state structure. What do I mean by that? For an LLC, for a corporation, you have to register in the state, right? Now, for an LLC or a C-Corp, which is what you register in the state, and of course, you have professional association and you have partnership and all those stuff, but let's just stick to the basics, right? You can elect to become an S-Corp, right? You can elect. So the election is at the federal level, all right? Is at the federal level. All right. And so it's not like, of course, you cannot become an S-Corp from a sole proprietorship. You cannot be that. You can't be a sole proprietor and just decide to have an election. No, you have to have to be a structure, a state registered structure. Then you can become an S-Corp, right? Now, why would you become an S-Corp? Great things, great things, great things. For an S-Corp, the beauty of it is that it's really a flow through, meaning that you're not taxed if you have an S corp, let's say S corp, ABC S corp. You're not taxed at the S corp level, the S corp, when the S corp makes a profit or a loss, it flows through to the owners. Let's say the S corp makes a profit of 100,000, net profit of 100,000. That means after putting the all the money you made minus all the expenses and all those things we do on the tax return anyway. Anyway, at the end of the day, you have the net income. The net income flows to the owners of the S corp, so it's not taxed on the S corp tax return. It flows through. That's why you call it a pass-through entity, which is great. Now, the beauty of an S corp, the great thing about an S corp is that you can actually pay yourself a salary, right? When you have an LLC, the owners cannot receive a salary, right? And so the beauty of an S corp, even though it's a flow-through entity, and explain what a flow or pass-through entity, because it passes through, the income, the net income or the net loss passes to the owners of the company, right? Is taxed on their own tax returns, the owner's tax return. So the beauty is that you can actually be paid a salary on an if you have an S corp an S corp structure, you can be paid a salary. That's good because the unlike the sole proprietorship, when you go through the flow through, you have self-employment taxes that doesn't apply to S corps. So but of course you have to pay yourself a reasonable salary, reasonable compensation. I think I will hit that reasonable compensation, I believe, the next time, because it's good for me to just say something about it. And really, programs are short, so I'm not going to talk too much right now about that. So I'll have a show to just explain to you what is reasonable compensation, just a little bit. Now, you might say, okay, the S-Corp is so fantastic. Why doesn't everybody do an S-Corp? Well, as an S-Corp or why doesn't everybody elect to have an S-Corp? Well, great, great, great is great, but there are some restrictions, right? You cannot, S-Corp is not for everybody, right? Some of these restrictions, again, I'm not going to, there are a couple, but this is not, it's just informative, so I'm not going to give you everything. But for an S-Corp, everybody that is an S-Corp owner, which is a shareholder of an S-Corp, must be either a permanent resident or a US citizen, all right? Anybody that wants to own shares in the S-Corp must be a permanent resident of the United States or must be a citizen of the United States. And that's why sometimes I've seen it before that people say, you know what, I want to bring somebody in, maybe they have a brother that is located in a different country, and it's good for you to be upfront with your accountant, right? So your accountant will say, you know what, your CPA will say, you know what, if you're giving your bringing in someone that is not a resident, a permanent resident, or that is not a citizen, because the person might actually be living in another country but still be a permanent resident in the US. So it's good to know, but ask questions and know, right? Or tell, not even tell the CPA, but usually the CPAs will ask you, is this person a resident? If the person is not a resident, a permanent resident, or not a citizen, the person you cannot actually have an S-Corp, because the S-Corp would include that shareholder, right? And you can't have an S-Corp. You can't elect to become an S-Corp. All right. So that is one of the things that the highlights of one of them. Another one is the number of shareholders. Usually S corps, you know, have, I mean, it's 100, maximum of 100, but usually that might not really be a problem, because most S corps are really below 100, 100 shareholders. But again, there's a way we classify spouses when we're looking at the shareholding. But usually it doesn't really get more than up to that, even 100. But if it does, if it's getting up to that, know that that company can never be an S-Corp. If it has 100 shareholders and say, let's file the next corp election, or over 100, sorry, 101, nope, it can't be an S-Corp. Can't be an S-Corp. All right. And then also that different company, I have some structures, or we have some structures here, tax structures where two LLCs our shareholders of an S-Corp, and all kinds of structures. But again, even with that, we have to see, is that allowed? Can LLCs be owners of S-Corps, right? Analysis. So I'm not going to break it down here, because this is not a technical class, but just to understand that, there are certain should I say, entities that cannot be an S-Corp shareholder, right? Because sometimes we structure holding companies and all kinds of stuff like that. But there's a way that has to be structured, because it cannot, you cannot have certain companies as shareholders to an LLC. All right, you can't have that. And then I want to highlight, I think I can highlight one more, which again, there are a lot. There are others, not a lot, but there are others, right? And S corp is a bit different from an LLC, which is maybe, like, for example, a partnership, right? A partnership, an LLC that is a partnership, for example. For an LLC, you can say, you know what, I'm taking 40% of the profits, right? But I'm taking 20% of the loss, right? That's how an LLC works. But an S corp doesn't work like that. You can't do that. You have to, it's structured in a certain way, really based on shareholding, right? You can't just structure it and say, oh, this one is taking 40% of profit, the other one is taking 20% of loss. It doesn't happen like that. Loss. And because of that, right, we want to make sure that everybody is at the same, on the same level. There's no preference shareholder. You cannot even have another issue with an S corp. You cannot have more than one class of stock. So note that you can have preferential shares on it. No, it doesn't happen in S corp. So why am I bringing this point up? If you qualify to have an S corp structure, right? If you qualify, again, there are other scenarios we have to look at. I would say go for it because of the advantages. But again, that's the caveat here. Do you qualify? Does your company qualify? Right? And of course, I always say, if you don't have a CPA working with you want to really analyze that, of course, give my firm a call, set up an appointment so we can look at it, because there are a lot of advantages for an S corp. A lot of people remain as an LLC and they're paying huge taxes, right? A lot of taxes, and you don't want to be that person if you can avoid that, right? Very important, good to pay your share of taxes. I'm saying that is good, but if you can have savings here and there, why wouldn't you do that? All right. So that's just general overview of the S corp. Of course, again, reach out if you have any questions. All right, great to have everybody here. And of course, if you want your SME, small and medium-sized enterprise, to thrive, you have to be intentional. Finally, of course, as I always say, this is just for informative and educative purposes only. Reach out if you need your questions to be answered regarding your entity. All right, bye for now. See you next.